James, absolute pleasure to sit down with you. Thanks for the invite down today.
Welcome back. Thank you for having me.
We've an interesting history in the sense that we actually used to work at the same property, and that you were light years ahead of me in terms of seniority. I was doing my final year university placement. But we're in Dubai today. We're at the Radisson here in Media City. I'd love if listeners and watchers can just get a feel for your career journey to date and maybe take us from that journey and the decision that you made from the UK to the Middle East.
Of course. We have to go back to the 90s, I'm afraid. I think I entered the industry in a similar way to many. I come from the Midlands in Northamptonshire, famous for two things, good shoes and good rugby. And I was doing my higher education. It's supposed to go to university, and much to my father's dismay, at the weekends I was a breakfast waiter in a local hotel, and I loved it. I just completely fell in love with it. So from there, I went to work full time in my local, what was then Moat House, if you remember Moat House. And I was a waiter and then a barman, and worked my way up through food and beverage in the early days. And then got an opportunity to work for Courtyard Marriott in a managerial position in food and beverage, which was great, and really good exposure to, at that time in that location, a brand that was all people. It was all in terms of a development growth for me, and they made me a spirit to serve trainer and the philosophy of service and people care. So I really learnt a lot with them, but all too brief. I had a great mentor there who moved on. And moved on to, I didn't have the mobility, but he wanted me to go with him. And from there I went to Hilton, which contrasting experience in many ways. Again, at that time, in that location, I was at Watford in a food and beverage director role, I think, which is hugely high profile hotel. Their head office was just down the road. So David Michel's and Hugh Taylor and Wolfgang Neumann at the time were regular faces, and I was on the front line, sort of as a number three. So there I was really exposed to sort of the corporate side of it, and also learnt a bit about people as well, but also some things not to do with people, I think. But that was that particular hotel at that particular time. But again, good learnings. And from there, Radisson, or Residor as it was then, took over the old Moat House hotels. And I had an opportunity to go back to my original hotel. It's the only time I really went back, but it was my first opportunity to Residor, my first opportunity to be part of the Parking by Radisson conversion. And from there, I had a great mentor there who exposed me to all sorts of secondment roles as acting sort of general managers during those changes in Lakeside, Watford, Bedford, 3 months here, 3 months there. So completely immersed in leadership and decision making in a brand in its infancy as part of the conversion. So that was very much, I was on the high wire with no net, which for me I found a really good experience. I found I was quite good at that. And then from there, I had the opportunity I was spotted as talent. I was supposed to be an executive assistant manager, EAM role, so potential general manager with Radisson, and I went to the Royal in Dublin or the Radisson Blu at Stansted. So they kind of negotiated, and I ended up at Stansted, which at that time was a couple of years old. It was design-led, great brand, the one with the wine tower and the flying wine angels. Even back then, reception satellite pods, self-checking kiosks. They went in a cupboard very quickly. Some would say they should still do today, but
me,
yeah, particularly you, yes. But again, great mentor.
Can I just stop you on that for just 1 second? You've said mentor 3 times now.
Yeah.
And one of, I think, the benefits of this podcast is we can scale leaders' insight really efficiently, because many people can listen to it and watch it even if they're not working directly for you.
Yep.
And I've even said myself, some of the biggest influences on my life I've never met. I've just watched and ingested lots of their content online or read their books.
Okay.
What would you say some of the key takeaways are from having those? I think you've mentioned three so far, but just mentorship in general. How did it help you grow through the industry?
Um, I think with those two particular guys, um, there was an element of trust, and there was an element of respect. They anticipated I was going to make mistakes, but they were going to let me make them because I was going to learn from them. They weren't going to let me fall; they'd catch me, but they let me loose a little bit. So I took that as huge responsibility. You know, they entrusted that to me. Then I was going to pay that back as much as I could. And I thought that their leadership style. I think your mentors develop your leadership style for you over time, and I think those two did particularly. And yeah, then I spent 5 years with Residor, which was in Carlson Residor and the Carlson family, and my first GM job at 29 in Parkin, Thurrock. So I got on the bike and didn't fall off. And then from there, they moved me to my first opening and my first managed hotel, which was, again, so now you're dealing with owners. They're London based, so they're very local. It was a city centre hotel about an hour from London, and an opening. So GM, porter cabin, bunch of builders. Okay, I'll work it out. And that hotel went on to be very successful as well. And then from where did I go? 5 years there. I kind of ran out of options. I still wanted to grow. I always want more. I'm always driven. I don't want to sit still. And ironically, same Radisson mentor I referred to earlier has then moved to run the Cumberland in Marble Arch. So it's a beast of a hotel. 1,019 rooms, 27 meeting rooms, corner of Oxford Street and Park Lane, and he needed a hotel manager. So I went into London then at 2010. So I did the Champions League, I did the London Olympics. Right. Great fun, really great fun. And yeah, it was a beast. You were grappling with the operation every day. It was going to bite you if you weren't on your toes. So
another point I might just ask there for people listening. You had the opportunity perhaps to go with one of your mentors earlier in your career, but you didn't for certain reasons. But then it came full circle again. Really great opportunity. How important is keeping relationships in the hospitality world, given there is so much movement? Maybe younger people listening to not burn bridges in their career because
I mean, I'm probably an example of. So I've done parking in Radisson. So I had two hats, very young. I've done Hilton, Marriott, Radisson twice, and Accor. So I've worked for all the big boys, other than IHG probably, but all for the right reasons. I didn't burn any bridges, to your point, absolutely. There was always a natural progression. There was a positive reason. But also, I think that's something I learned from. If people work for me, are loyal to me, perform for me, and then they leave for the right reasons, I take that as a compliment. My responsibility to them is help develop their careers. So those relationships are hugely important, and they're still there. And I think so they should be. It's definitely a two-way thing. So then, from the Cumberland, I went to the Tower, same company. Everyone knows Tower Bridge. You can hit it with an apple. So I did the London Marathon, which was good fun. And then there was some change within the company. I was looking to get back to being, getting into a luxury GM role. A chance came up with Sofitel. So then I've gone from leased to managed. This was a franchise property at London Gatwick Airport. Which again, it's a different company, different culture, different brand, balancing owner expectations. The owner you will know, because that's where we crossed paths at Heathrow. So there's a lot of expectation from the ownership. You're very close to Accor's UK office as well in Hammersmith, so the profile is strong. Had a great time there. We had a really successful 2 years, and the owner asked me to then go and look after London Heathrow, which was his jewel. Probably the hardest job I had because of my predecessor. My predecessor had done a fantastic job. She was a really good GM, and you never work directly with GMs. GMs don't work with each other, and you can do very well picking up a hotel that perhaps there's room for improvement. There's room for efficiency. You could do this better. This one was just kind of hang on and hold tight. As you know, it was huge pharma. So that's the convention centre was massively important to the hotel. Really high guest satisfaction, a lot of loyal returning guests, an engaged team, very high standards. So that really tested my mettle. And with an owner who has an office 3 feet from mine, but he was very good to me and very fair to me. And I thoroughly enjoyed that. And then that was London for 10 years. So I then had a young family, and that's how Dubai came about. My priorities were and still are my family's security and a good start for the kids, and what better place to come. Same Radisson mentor also happened to be out here, and things sort of unfolded that I could get back to a brand I knew in this hotel, which is, everybody knows it's been here 18 years. It's very well recognised. It's predominantly a corporate hotel in a business district, so it's a very soft landing for me and my family, and the kids are thriving.
And how many years is that here now?
6.
Okay.
Yeah, 6. And
so you've done 6 here in the Middle East, and Dubai, I suppose, is the capital of the Middle East in terms of hospitality, in my opinion anyway. Can you outline some differences you've seen between hospitality in the UK versus hospitality here in Dubai, and maybe some shocks you're like, oh, didn't expect that, or this is much better, or, what would you say the crossover is, some comparisons?
Well, when I arrived, 6 years ago, they were still talking about Dubai as a developing market. It wasn't. It's developed. That was just not correct. And this hotel 18 years ago was 50,000 keys in Dubai, no Burj Khalifa, Business Bay coming out of the ground, and now it's plus 150,000. So Dubai was already developed and already thriving. I think the difference is the Western hotels, certainly the leased hotels, are there's more clustering, there's more efficiency focus. District directors, cluster managers are a lot more common. I came here 6 years ago. That was very rare. It's very owner dependent. It existed, but the GM appointment was quite personal to the owner in one property. So I think that was very different. I got clustered sort of 2 years in. I actually have 2 different owners, which is quite unusual as well, as an example. So I have an Emirati owner here and a Saudi owner in my other hotel. So I think that was very different. Food and beverage is very different. I mean, I was in London for 10 years. It basically looks like Dubai now, but 6 years ago, Dubai sort of exploded. It's not, everyone talks about the supply of the hotel keys, but actually the change in food and beverage is huge. And I think the hotels now have a better opportunity to work with specialists and brand partners than they did 6 years ago. How many Michelin stars are there now? 8, I think, which is the same as Wales. That's come from nowhere. So that's completely different, I think.
Okay. You mentioned owners and different stakeholders that you have, whether you're franchising or managing, and then you've obviously got your team. If we focus on the kind of the ownership, brand management, how do you approach that? Was there any learnings you came from it, managing different types of personalities, while also you steering the ship in the direction you feel it needs to go, versus maybe managing an owner? I probably get a little bit of experience of that, having investors, and then having the team, right?
Yeah. Again, when I was flown over to meet the owner here, he also owns the Grand Hyatt in Abu Dhabi, which wasn't open at the time. We sat in this beautiful hotel in a lobby. He was very clear to me, which I think made it very easy for me. Again, I think was very fortunate with the ownership that I have. He had multiple brands. He had multiple hotels. He's had years of experience. He's had this hotel at that time for 12 years. So he's heard all the corporate stuff and all the brand stuff. And he just said, James, and he's had 5 GMs at this point. He says, I just want someone who cares about this hotel as much as I do. And it was that simple. And that's been our sort of philosophy ever since here is, I just want people that care. We're not the newest hotel. We're very well known. We've got a great reputation. We have a fierce loyalty to us, but there's a position in any hotel market, depending on your product and your age. But it never gets easier because the supply gets bigger and everybody's new for 5 minutes. But yeah, it was very clear when he said, I just want people that care. if we follow that mantra, it actually says on our wall where we have our morning meeting, we do it because we care, we do it because we want to, not because we feel that we have to.
So care seems like a value or a vision to have, but what is the day-to-day execution and reinforcement of what it means to care here?
Okay. Yeah, I think again that's sort of where you start your day with your managers. We sort of have a very insular. I mean, I'm a big sportsman and a sports coach outside, so I think there's a lot of similarities you can take from that. The team ethic is one. If you are surrounded by competition that may be newer or more challenging to you, then you sort of become quite insular and quite galvanizing. And yeah, this says we are DMC on it, because that's what we stand for. We were the first, and we still believe to be the best, and we don't care what anybody outside thinks. And we try to show that to each other and to our guests every day, I think. And I think that's how it manifests within the team, I think.
But if let's say I'm a junior staff member and I apply for a position, firstly, I would say at that point, what sort of characteristics are you looking for in that person that fits the culture you have here?
Will, honesty, yeah, they have to care. It's very simple. Yeah. The resume is kind of ancillary. Yeah. If we can't have a conversation like this, take challenge, be able to challenge me as well. And normally, yeah, very quickly through that process, you can find out. We can do behavioural questioning all you like, but talk to me about you. Yeah. And then we're very quickly going to find out if you're going to fit in this. Yeah. I think.
You know, we've talked about maybe the stakeholder management. I don't want to say above, but you know, ownership for better use of the word is kind of external to some extent. You mentioned earlier that many of your mentors, they showed you the various leadership skills and the way they led from viewing them. Yeah. I think junior team members will look at the big boss. That's the general manager in most hotels, and you can say these things and these words, but actually they'll just watch you. Yep. And they'll see how you act.
Absolutely right.
Right. So like when you come in every day, what is the type of leadership that you want to be showing to your team to inspire them?
I think I'm authentic. I think I'm a human being. I'm not a corporate suit. There are 7 beliefs within Radisson that sort of demonstrates the sort of culture that we want as a group. I have very little patience, so can't digest 7 things at once. But one of them says we have fun in all that we do. So that's the one we have. That's the lead one. I think my team, if you ask them, would say I'm approachable. They would say I'm honest. They would say I am authentic. I can be direct, but I'm fair. I'm not, and I'm pretty consistent. I'm clear in expectation. I'm clear in communication. I set the example. I set the standard. I don't delegate it. So I'll get stuck in when I need to, and I think that's important as well, because then you're demonstrating your beliefs, put simply. So yeah, I think that why can't you have fun at work if you're here 10, 11 hours a day for however many years? If you can make an incremental difference to somebody's day and just put a smile on their face or make them laugh, that's going to reflect on the guest experience, etc., the team camaraderie, and I think that's reflected. I mean, you can measure it with retention, turnover, engagement, which are all very positive in my two hotels. So, but I think that's because I'm authentic about it. I mean it when I do it. So,
you know, in hospitality, for example, we've had many events over the last, say, 20 years that have been transformative, and some of them have come out of the blue, like COVID, for example, and all of a sudden the property is closed down. And I always find that as the leader of an organization, you're kind of like the magnet for bad news. So like, you know, if we have the marketing team or the product and engineering team, marketing could have a very good day, but then product and engineering could have a very bad day. And a client could email me a bad email, and an investor could, and I'm the magnet for the bad news. Even the marketing are going home happy. Yes. I'm in bad mood. Yes. Because I've seen the bad news and they've not seen it yet, and they probably never will see it. Yes. So between change and you being a magnet for bad news, you're still trying to lead with happiness and fun, but what are the tactics you do? And like, for example, this morning I woke up, I knew I was in a bad mood because I've had 3 hours sleep over the last 2 days, but I'm conscious of it. So how do I make sure when I meet the team that I'm try be but happy? But have you any tactics for that where like not every day is perfect and you can't be fun every day?
But I think that is the tactic. I think self-awareness is the tactic, isn't it? I don't stop. I don't really. I'm not going to pretend that I can switch off when I leave, or that I am looking after my own well-being when walking the dog. I'm thinking about work most of the time, and how we can do more and how we can do better. So yeah, I think that is the tactic. Self-aware of, okay, I need to get a handle on this. This cannot translate to what we're going to do today. I think is a big part of it.
Yeah. I also find, friends of mine, maybe not in the industry, I don't think they sometimes realize the P&L that a general manager oversees.
Yeah.
And I don't mean this to be disrespectful to anyone in our industry because I'm in the industry, but sometimes we see hospitality as the waiter and the waitress and the barman, and people outside the industry don't actually realize how big of a budget and how big of a P&L a general manager actually manages. And a lot of the time it minnows the business that they either work in or run in themselves. So it's quite an esteemed role to be in, and quite a big P&L to have to manage every day. So can maybe share some of the stresses that people don't really see. Like it's a big role.
It's I called it the high wire with no net. I called it being on the high wire with no net.
Okay.
I called it that before, but yeah, it can be quite a lonely place. But some people are okay with that, and some leaders aren't. I enjoy the autonomy. The reason I came back to Radisson is, for me, they give you that autonomy, they give you that empowerment, they give you that trust. Probably that I benefited from with the mentors I referred to. So I'm very comfortable in that culture. But yes, it is tough. I mean, certainly in this hotel, there's been decline in certain areas of revenue. So we've had to do some transformational stuff as the market's evolved. I mentioned F&B and the obvious supply and the migration of the core market, right? Business Bay and DIFC is now the centre. We started doing a catering business, for example, in 2019 from nowhere, to support revenue streams from declining outlets that probably needed some investment. That was going to take time, and that was hugely successful. You got your coffee from Jones the Grocer this morning. That was just some marble in a lobby with some sofas on, of no benefit to guest, or certainly not to owner. So how do you make that a profitable space? Are there F&B specialists out there who are actually better at it than a conventional hotel, who put in their own concepts and have a manager overseeing 3 outlets? Yeah, there are. So let's partner with them and put one in a rooftop bar and one in a restaurant, and diversify the business a little bit, and generate some rental income. So yeah, it's a very big P&L, and not one that anybody expects ever to get smaller. So you have to find ways to make it bigger.
Yeah, I get you on that point. We've touched on lots of things, a lot of human qualities and leadership and team and stakeholder management. You obviously know our space, which is trying to bring technology to the industry that doesn't necessarily take away from the human touch in any way, but actually gives the staff more time to do what are the meaningful interactions, and takes away what we feel is maybe more of the admin. And we kind of had a little giggle at the start about kiosks. We're in the tech startup world, which comes from like the Silicon Valley world, and if I can contrast other industries to hospitality, I would say we're not doing great. What are your just overall thoughts on technology in the hospitality industry? If you agree with me that we're not doing great, can you see any reasons why?
Yeah, the anecdote about the kiosks was a true story. They did go in a cupboard very quickly. I think when I arrived, excuse me, maybe 5 years ago, I did a panel on ATM, and the basis of which was about the developments of technology in hospitality. And then I think I was asked the next year to come back, and the next year to come back. And the forum, we always seem to be talking about the same thing. And that sort of answers your question. Is it speed? No, firstly, any technology we're going to put into the hospitality industry has to be, for me, a guest enabler. It has to help the guest experience. we can be far too focused on conceptual ideas from brand that we think we should deploy, but have we asked the right people and done it the right way around? We can be biased towards this application represents functional change, therefore it'll be more efficient. Okay, but does it compromise quality? And I don't necessarily think that that 6 years ago we were thinking in that mentality. And I hope it gets better, but it's only, and if that mentality has changed, the speed needs to change. By the time these ideas, and I've done pilots in both hotels, whether it's pre-arrival, in-stay chat, in-room dining, in-bedroom media, all those kind of things. And most of them, if not all of them, have come and gone. And a lot of them are, again, to my point, we've talked about this a long time ago. Why does it take 5 years to get to the point of a pilot deployment? So yeah, I think speed is a problem. And I think remember who it's for is the other one.
I did a talk in Ireland during the week, and one of the last slides, because a lot of the room was ownership or general managers at least, and hoteliers spend 2.75% of revenue on technology, whereas the OTAs, Booking.com and Expedia spend 15%. And you don't have to, I'm not asking you to pinpoint one of the owners or any of the owners, just generally speaking, you are at the top table, you speak to owners, you speak to general managers, MDs. Why do you think they, because in life, if you want to make money or you want to improve things, sometimes you have to spend it. Why do you think there's a pullback to spend money on technology? Or is it there?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't necessarily think there is. I think if you compared it to sustainability 6-10 years ago, the question you would get back from an owner is, well, what's the return? Is it 3 years or not? Although that's completely changed.
Are you, I don't mean to say you're being flippant with 3 years, but is that a consistent thing they would like to see an ROI on 3 years? Is that an industry thing?
Yeah, I think in London it's probably less. Here's probably 3. There's certainly more tolerance and understanding to it now. It's probably 5. But that's sort of sustainability talking. I don't think technology has the same, I don't think I have the same conversations with owners about proposals for investment in technology. It's how much does it cost and does it work?
Okay.
Because to our point, it has to work. You're going to put it in front of a guest anyway. That guest loses faith and you just cause frustration immediately if it doesn't. So no, I don't. Certainly from a Radisson perspective, I don't think there's a lack of appetite to invest at all.
Brilliant. Listen, if we finish off with, we're asking 2 or 3 questions to all guests on the podcast that are similar, just to see if we can start to collate some common threads of maybe industry problems as one example. So if you were to say that there's one challenge that you are either facing today or you see coming in the hospitality industry, can you think of a challenge?
I go back to the last thing we just talked about, probably speed of execution.
Okay.
Supply expansion is one thing, brand expansion is another. You look at how many brands that some of the big companies offer now that we could just become completely white noise to the next generation of guests. You've got to have, if you're going to do something conceptually different, transformationally better, technologically advanced, then our speed of execution has got to get a lot better. As an industry, I think.
Listen, on your brand point, I think I say with the Accor Limitless thing, I said, unless you support PSG in France, I don't think anyone would be able to tell you even 5 brands that lie under Accor. And look how many there are. I don't need you to comment on that in case you want to keep it, but I'll say it. And I just don't get it, right? If you were to give the hospitality industry a piece of advice, and this could be a piece of advice you've seen in other industries work, and you'd want to pass it on to your colleagues, what would that be?
I haven't necessarily seen it from other industries.
Or it could be just a personal.
Within hospitality, I think remember you're a memory maker. All right, as I said, I've had managers work for me and gone on to better things, and I'm really proud for them. And hopefully I help them along the way somewhat, and they'll remember that. That makes me feel better. I take it as a compliment. You don't remember, if you work in an office on the 17th floor, you don't remember Janice from accounts if you're in an office with 20 odd people. But in this industry, you have so much variety and access to people internally and externally. I remember Diane from Moat House, who saw a corporate guest from behind the bar playing with the arm of his glasses, and she had some of those little screwdrivers in the drawer that you get out of a Christmas cracker, and she went and fixed his glasses. I would think I was 19, and I still remember that. I still remember Mikey Dubai, who stays here, lovely odd Irish gentleman, and he comes for the golf in January every year. He's probably one of the funniest guests I ever get to interact with. And wherever he hops around the hotels in Dubai, he calls me to get him an early check-in, regardless of the brand he's staying in. He's just a lovely old boy. Those are memories you remember, right? Yeah. The people you worked with and helped along the way.
I love that. And my mentor, Gerald Lawless's first value was the first response to the guest is never no.
There you go.
Jane, thank you so much.
All right, pleasure.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.